to officially open up our Littleton Conservation Commission on October 21st, 2025. And what I'd like to do is to start with if we have any additional administrative discussions that we would like to add to our agenda this evening.
Yep, I've got a couple, Sarah.
Yep.
Mass Trails grant application is one, and then the other one is Foster Street reconstruction that's been going on.
Okay, and then I just have one just to briefly go over the draft order of conditions for 64 Beaverbrook. And then just as a reminder, the next meeting will be November the 4th. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start off with the approval of the minutes from October 7th, 2025, which have been sent out to everyone. Does anyone have any comments or corrections or concerns or anything on that?
It looks great.
Okay. Anyone else?
I sent a couple comments over to Lauren and Tim earlier this morning. I think they were mainly editorial. I think the only one that might have some reference or something that we should talk about was the minimum tree size that we were looking to have tagged out on the King Street property. The minute said 5-inch diameter, but I think we usually go 6-inch. No, 6-inch diameter. I wasn't sure if it was just a typo or if we agreed on 5 inches. That's fine. But
I think you're right, Kyle. I think it was 6.
Okay, great. So we'll make that change and then the other editorial ones. That being the case, would someone like to make a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. And Andrew, will you do us the favor of doing the roll call, please?
Of course. All right, roll call vote. Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Carl.
I'm Melberg, aye.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
Myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay, great. Hi, Jim. Wanted to welcome you.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it. Nice to see everyone again.
Yep,
Good to
that's
see you,
great.
Jim.
Andrew?
All right, so let's go ahead and open our 731 continued public hearing notice of intent 87 Tehadawon Road, Mass DEP 204-1027, construction of a 2-family residence. Who's here to speak with us on this evening?
Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yep. If you can just go ahead, Justin, and introduce yourself, that would be great.
Yep, absolutely. So, for the record, Justin Leclerc, McCarty Engineering, here tonight on behalf of Habitat for Humanity. Brian Marchetti had a conflict tonight, so he asked that I attend tonight's meeting in his place. If the commission wants, I can share my screen with the most revised plan.
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Yep. So...
And then, Justin, while we're waiting, if you can bring the commission up to date, I think you had referenced in the last meeting that you had Board of Health approval, but needing Planning Board. Is that correct?
So my understanding is that, is Board of Health was addressed and it was currently going through the ZBA process. That Mr. Marchetti was in front of them regarding the structure itself.
Okay.
Yeah, that was supposed to be the 16th. Do you know how that went?
No, he did not let me know how that went. I think overall he told me it's progressing forward. I think there's just a few minor details that they're trying to iron out right now regarding the structure itself, but he didn't go into the full details of what specifically they're looking for.
Okay, Justin, if we can hold off for just a second. Tim, there's someone, Mel, that has their hand raised. I'm not sure if they're in part of this discussion or not. Is that someone that's relevant to this?
Justin, does Mel Lyons Takeda? Is that somebody that's with you?
No, the only one that should be on. I don't know if that's the name that's under is Carolyn Reed of Habitat should be calling in from a phone.
Yep, she's in as well. Okay, let's carry on, and then as protocol for our hearings, we'll go ahead and hear and commissioners will have conversations. And if someone has their hands up, we'll ask them to identify themselves and speak, and they'll be moved over to be allowed to do so. Okay, Justin, go ahead.
All right, so this is the revised plan in front of you here. The comments I believe the commission requested as part of the revised plan was some colors, demarcating the wetlands, the 50-foot buffer, and the 100-foot buffer zone. So here in the blue is your delineated edge of wetlands all the way down to the end here. In the bright green is your 50-foot buffer zone. The dark line here is still the erosion control barrier that was shown on the previous plan. And then in red is the 100-foot buffer zone. The other thing that the commission had asked for was the tagging of trees, anything over 6 inches of DBH. Mr. Marchetti did tell me that him along with the commission went out on site, walked the site, and the only tree that was shown to be removed is approximately here in the corner of the structure. That was the one tree. It's approximately 12 inches DBH that will be removed, and a minimum of 5 evergreen trees will be planted, which was shown here on the right under note 6. This just states what I had just said. And then the commission had asked to show the material storage in the soil stockpile area, which is shown here in the dash line with the note in the middle. Septic is still shown as is, the structure shown as is with the driveway, the P-stone diaphragm, and the dry well, which I believe the commission had seen as part of the last plan that was submitted and discussed at the previous meeting. So with that, I believe that covers everything that the commission was looking for. Any additional questions, more than happy to answer.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Commissioners, questions?
What was what was the type of tree that I can't remember? They mentioned it. That's going to be coming down.
I'm not sure, and I did ask Mr. Marchetti. He was unaware the specific type, but he did say that a lot of this area was overgrown, wrapped in invasive. So I think he even said it was kind of hard to judge just based on the sheer and space of species wrapped around that tree.
Where I was going with it is you want to put evergreens in it or in its place, but I don't remember there being a lot of evergreens there. So why that?
So the evergreens, as part of discussions with the abutter here, the one request they had was to provide some screening between the proposed development and their property. So the idea of the evergreens is that once they're planted and matured, it'll provide that screening between the proposed development as well as the abutting parcel. So that was the intent of the 5 evergreens. And again, it's the one tree located here. Everything else tree-wise is located outside the 100-foot buffer zone. And my understanding is that between the wetlands and the 100-foot, it was a lot of, it used to be a field, so it's overgrown with scrub brush, prickers, various invasives.
Yeah, it's a rough field.
Okay.
Okay. Other commissioners?
Yeah, I wasn't able to make that sidewalk, so I was kind of curious how it went, if everybody was comfortable with that. It seemed like a very overgrown area. I'm not surprised there's invasives. I was kind of shocked to hear there's only one tree larger than 6 inches in diameter that's coming down.
In the area of the house, there's not a lot. It's clear that it had been a farm field at one time, and there will be a whole bunch of trees being taken out. But inside the 100, the staking showed only one tree.
And it's mainly Japanese barberry, multiflora rose on the ground. It's hectic in there.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we do have a hand raised, so if commissioners have asked their questions, we'll go ahead and ask Mel to speak. Tim, do you want to go ahead and promote?
Yep, she is permanent to talk.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you. If you could
Hi.
introduce yourself and where you reside.
Yes, I'm Mary Ellen Lyons from 79 Tadwan Road, and I apologize I wasn't able to change that screen name. But I did join the walkthrough the other night. You can see my property line. You can see my name on that plan. I did, join that walkthrough the other night just to, see what was going on, what the new plan looked like. But just you had referenced the zoning board meeting in the beginning, and I did attend that zoning board meeting last week. And it is not progressing in terms of getting zoning because it doesn't qualify. There's no two-family zoning in this area. So I know there was another engineer that presented, Carolyn Reed from Habitat wasn't able to be at that meeting. He gave a brief overview of, the plans, but it's so surprising that this has been going on since this land was purchased in 2020. And, they've been talking about this project for all these years. And then it became clear that at the 11th hour, they were asking for a zoning waiver. So that hearing was continued to November 20th. And they're going to continue to discuss it, but basically they're telling them that it's not going to pass unless they file for a 40B, which I'm not familiar with, but I was able to share some of my perspective from just having watched this project for the last 5 years. So, I did have a few questions because the original intent for the Littleton Conservation Trust for buying this land, and obviously trying to conserve it, which we were completely in favor for, talked about the impact to Long Lake, the impact to, there's a pond on that property, a lot of wildlife. In their brochure about why we should have bought it, it was talking about the drain on the lake, and the development of this property would not be in our best interest. So, I know there were only two places they could put an affordable house. And I know some of you were not on the Conservation Trust at that time, but it was decided this would be where it was. So I guess my question is, with that septic, which I know, Ed, you mentioned how much, they're saying one tree will be removed to build the house, but does the septic concern anyone, just the location of where that is? And again, I know they'll have to see if it passes again, but as one of the other abutters that was there last week mentioned, this perk test was done at the during a drought, and they're talking about like the maximum number of bedrooms. So,
right. So Mel, you've asked, so let me go ahead and let me turn this over to Justin, just because we have a full night tonight, so we want to make sure that everyone can get heard.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
Certainly appreciate your perspective. So
thank you,
Justin. If you would like to address, that would be great.
So the short answer is the septic was tested. That was coordinated with Board of Health. Board of Health agent out there submitted, reviewed, and approved per the Title V, which dictates and sets the standards for testing as well as system design for any structures that require a septic system. So that would be my short answer to that. In regards to the amount of trees, there are trees that will have to be taken down, but again, and I'm not trying to sound harsh or sharp with my answer, but it is outside the 100-foot buffer zone, which is outside the conservation's jurisdiction. So again, this was reviewed by the Board of Health, the system itself, and approved with the appropriate design.
Okay. With that said, of the knowledge from the planning board that there may be some hiccups here, what are your thoughts on continuing this? Historically, it's in the best interest if you don't have your permits to keep that open, but obviously as the applicant, we can't tell you what to do.
Yep.
But would
So-
like to know your thoughts on this.
Yep. So in regards to the commission's purview of the development itself, the proposed plan, obviously in front of you right now, says a proposed duplex. That is being talked about back and forth between us, the ZBA, as well as the town, in how to best move forward regarding the proposed structure. And the reason I use the word structure is, regardless of what ends up being constructed, whether it's a duplex, whether it's a condominium, whether it's, I know the 40B was thrown out, but whatever it is not going to be any larger than what is shown on the plan in front of the commission tonight. So
Okay.
the overall,
And we appreciate that. We just have to always tell you that if you're going to have any changes after we've closed this, if they're not minor, you'll have to file all over again.
so what I would,
Where you're having a meeting on November 20th, I would ask the commissioners their thoughts. I would be my encouragement for you to extend, but as we discussed, you are the applicant.
yep, and I would just, the reason I want to explain it this way is that the structure as shown is a certain size, and whatever structure ends up being, for whatever reason, one or the other, if it gets changed, will not be larger than what's shown. If anything, the scope in the development would shrink. It just, as an example,
Okay.
if it ends up being
What we'd like to do is to just affirm what are your intentions? Would you like us to close this, or would you like us to continue it?
If the commission is open to, and even wanting to put a special condition that a revised plan be submitted upon determination
Yeah,
from the ZBA.
once we close it, then you'll have to submit that. There won't be any special conditions put in the order of conditions. Commissioners?
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with a condition saying a revised plan of a completely different structure is to be provided. I think, Sarah, you're right. We can take a straw poll if you want before you decide to have us vote on this, but I'm going to tell you my opinion is that I want to see a final plan in front of me. I don't think we're not going to close our hearing and have a plan in front of us that isn't indicative of what's going to be built out there. And if it gets changed to one building, two buildings that are smaller, I understand that the overall impact is smaller, but that's not what's being presented in front of us right now. And we need the opportunity to see what that plan is going to look like. And that would be considered a major change, right? Not a minor modification. So again, like Sarah's telling you, you can ask us to close and vote tonight if you want. But those are my 2 cents.
Could I ask her to take the commission's temperature on? I know,
Yes,
Mr. Maxfield, you spoke.
Yep, you can do that, Justin, if that's what you're asking. We will ask Andrew to do that. So the assumption would be that this would be closed this evening, and what we're being asked is, would you affirm this in a positive manner, or would you have a negative? So Andrew, if you would do us the kindness of doing a roll call, that would be great.
Sure. All right, we'll do a straw poll vote. We'll start with Carl.
Carl Melberg, nay.
Sarah?
Sarah Seward, nay.
Let's see here. Michael?
Michael Livingston, nay.
Kyle?
Pat Maxfield, nay.
And myself, I would certainly hold off until we have a final plan. Honestly, in looking at it, anything within our jurisdictional area, I don't have a problem with. I think, everything that's being proposed seems like it's fine. But to have a final plan in place before we officially vote, I think would be for the best.
Yeah, I should have said it that way, Andrew. I totally agree with what you said. I am comfortable with what we've seen as far as impacts go, but it's not enough here yet.
No, and I definitely respect the commission's stance on that. Obviously, I have to do my part and ask on behalf of the applicant.
Absolutely.
But with it being, hopefully resolved relatively soon, I don't see it out of the realm to request a continuance to the next scheduled meeting. And then hopefully by then there's a final plan that.
Yep. So we meet on November. We meet on November 4th and on the 18th. And then this can be continued. We've had some that have been continued 6 months out, 1 month out. That's your prerogative if that's what you would like to do. And
Andrew, you didn't call my name, but
oh my gosh, sorry, Ed.
That's quite all right. Quite all right. I would be a no, but I'm also I appreciate the parts that are not in our jurisdiction. I'm not happy that we're decimating this property, but I also still have a concern about the house and the property being so much in the 100. A goodly portion, well, half the house and a goodly portion of the driveway. I don't have enough history to know if, how much we've approved and not approved in that, but yeah.
Okay. So getting back to Justin, what would you like for us to do?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head when the next ZBA meeting is. Is it this?
So my suggestion could be you extend it to the 4th, the next meeting in 2 weeks. You can look at your calendar. It can always be continued.
Yeah.
So it would go on as a continuation. If you would like to be heard and have us vote on it at that point, you can. Or you can just call Tim and say, I'd like to push it out another meeting or two.
No, and that's easy enough. So at this time, I request that the commission continue us to the November 4th meeting. And between now and then, we'll reach out to Tim.
Didn't someone say, though, that the Board of Appeals meeting was like November 16 or something?
Right, but this
is Caroline.
This just gives you an opportunity to take this all in from this evening. Carolyn, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. This is Carolyn Reed. I'm the Executive Director for Habitat for Humanity. And the preference of Habitat as the client would be to continue it to November 4th.
Okay. Thank you. We appreciate your input. So with that, Tim, that's noted. Thank you. Have a good evening. Okay, it's now 7:53. I'd like to go ahead and open the 7:45 public meeting. It's a request for determination of applicability, 25 Worcester Drive, a removal of hazard trees. Who is here to speak with that?
I'm voting over now, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. So for those of you that have just joined us, just kind of rules of the road with our open meeting, what we do is the applicants get moved over as panelists and they present, the commissioners ask some questions, and then if there's anyone in attendance that would like to be heard, you just kind of raise your hand and we will unmute you. Okay, let's go ahead and get started.
How you doing? My name is Elias Makrianis. I'm the resident of 25 Worcester Drive. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Yes. Elias, if you want to just give the commission an overview, that would be great.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
if you have any pictures that you'd like to share, or Tim, if you'd like to share any from the record, that would be great as well.
Yep, I'll pull it up.
Go ahead, Elias.
So there are 4 trees in the back of the house. It's the northeast corner of the house. 3 of them are completely dead, and 1 of them has a hollow point in the middle. So what happened back in 23, a branch came down and broke my fence. I didn't do anything about it back then. I didn't mind it. But then in September of 25, another branch came down, didn't cause any damage. So I contacted Iron Tree, and the arborist came down, and he found those 4 trees to be a hazard because I have a microfast device for the septic, then it's the fence, the patio, and also the house. And the trees are tall enough to reach the house. So I'm trying to remove those 4 trees in case they come down into, the fence or that microfast device or the patio or the house.
And commissioners, you saw that a letter was submitted in the filing from the arborist as well. I had a chance to go out there today and do a drive-by, and for sure the trees are not living. Commissioners, what are your thoughts?
I think if they're dead and they're that close to, Elias's house and deck and fence, they're clearly a hazard, and I don't see any problem with removing the ones identified.
Chase, I see you. I'm moving you over. Okay.
Yeah, it looks like access would be just kind of via a crane, right? They're not going to go in there and boots on the ground type thing. They're probably top down. I'm assuming that that's the way to go about it if equipment's staying outside of there and they're working from. It looks like they're working from the road, basically.
Elias, can you confirm the process that you are bringing in a crane?
Yes, ma'am. So they're going to bring a crane. The crane will be parked in the driveway of 20 Worcester Drive. I already have consent from my neighbor. The crane will reach over. It's about 150 feet away. They're going to cut the trees and lift them out of there. No boots on the ground. Nobody's going to be back there. Just a worker to cut the tree. And the grinding and everything will happen either in my driveway or on the road. I'm going to hire a detail because the road will be closed for the work, for safety.
Okay, great. Commissioners, any questions? Okay, if we don't, anyone?
Not for me. It seems pretty straightforward.
Okay.
I had a quick question.
Yep.
Where it's on the plan where it says boundary of water, what does that mean? Boundary, what is the boundary of water?
So when it rains, there's water back there that trickles down towards the street.
That's BVW back there, Carl.
Oh, BBW. Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No.
How far from the wetland of the trees, Tim?
Not far. Within 20 feet.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry,
Elias,
Tim.
replanting plans?
Yes, ma'am. So
Want to discuss that?
I was told 8 total trees, but I was advised that I can, because of the limited space back there, I was advised I can mix shrubs and trees, correct?
Yeah.
So I have a plan. I already find some local species. I have a letter, actually. I forget.
Yep, I'm pulling that up right now.
Oh, okay. All right. To plant trees and shrubs, a mix back there. Like, I don't know, what's my time frame, like, and if you guys wanted me to send pictures back to you with the new trees and shrubs in place.
So, well, we would suggest that prior to the start of your work, just call the office, let Tim know. When it's completed, let Tim know, and then look at the seasonal for plantings. We'll look at whether it can be done this fall or if you'd have to wait till the spring to have higher success for planting. So
okay, all right.
Open communication with the conservation.
Okay.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Andrew, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. So I was just wondering, since these are so close to the wetland, I may have missed this, but was a waiver submitted just because of the proximity? I know it's an RDA, but
I was going to ask, do we need a waiver with the RDA if we?
We would need the waiver. I believe it was submitted. Was it?
I think, I did submit that.
Okay, I didn't see that.
Or
in the
maybe.
files.
Is it?
I didn't see it either, so it's just curious.
I might have missed. I could check.
Maybe not.
Back at the office, it might have been submitted separately and not made its way to the website.
If this was submitted without a waiver, I would still be comfortable with going forward if we empower the agent to approve the work in the context of the waiver. I don't necessarily want to hold this up, particularly given the potential change in weather conditions in mid-October to mid-November.
Okay. With that,
I do think a waiver is necessary, but to empower Tim and Lauren to give them the green light once we have a satisfactory waiver.
Sounds good.
That's great. Do we have a motion for the request for determination of applicability?
I'll make a motion that the commission close the hearing and issue a -3 determination for 25 Worcester Drive for the removal of hazard trees with associated waiver to be collected by Tim and Lauren.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Yep. Who did that? Carl? Okay, great.
All right. Roll call vote. Chase?
Chase Garbig, aye.
Carl?
Carl Melberg, aye.
Michael?
Michael Livingston, aye.
Kyle?
Oh, Maxfield, aye.
Sarah?
Sarah Seward, aye.
Ed? And myself, aye. It is unanimous.
Okay, great. Good luck with your tree removal.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. It is now 8:02, barely on time. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open the 8 o'clock public hearing, discussion of current and future land use of town-owned parcel U12-14-0. See Town Conservation website, as you know, for some of that information. What I'd like to do is just go over a few things as we open this. Chase is going to present for everyone, for the commission and for the public that are here in attendees as well. With that said, after Chase does that, we'll have some comments by legal counsel and then open up to anyone that would like to share their thoughts on this, and then we can discuss this with conservation. This will be, I just want to discuss that this will be one of probably at least another meeting as well, so nothing is planned on being voted tonight. This is just to take everything in and see how we go from there. Also, kind of as I had mentioned earlier, rules of the road. If you would like to speak, what we ask for you to do is to raise your hand. Either Tim or myself will have you come in. Everyone will be able to speak once, and you'll have approximately 3 minutes to either ask a question or have some statements. And Chase will talk about that a little bit more as well. So I will turn this over to you, Chase, and the ability to share your screen as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. I think Sarah really set the preamble quite well here. The goal of tonight for the Conservation Commission is to understand the range of potential outcomes that we might have with this parcel. And we'll talk about the specifics in a moment, as well as to understand the public's input on what they would like to see with that parcel, because frankly, there's a range, and some of those are easier to implement legally and regulatorily than others. What I'm going to do here is share a presentation, because I think it's important for everybody to be up to speed on the nature of the issues. And then once we do that, Ivrea Fried from Town Council's office will weigh in on some of the, let's say, the salient questions that the Commission has had in the past related to these things. And then we'll have to think about, sort of potentially based on comments, what other legal questions might come up. So the agenda tonight, I'm going to talk about existing conditions. Ivrio is going to talk about town council comments in response to some of the issues that we think might be relevant here. Then we'll have public comment. Then after that, we'll have board meeting discussion. One important element to the public comment here is I see a lot of folks. We don't typically get 31 participants in our Conservation Commission meetings. We're going to try and make this as efficient as possible. You will have a right to speak. I would encourage written comments. You'll hear that from me a couple times, but part of the reason we're putting public comment ahead of board member discussion is we want to hear what the public thinks before we get to the board member discussion piece of this. And then, as Sarah noted, in most importantly, I mean, we're not inclined to entertain a vote to decide the disposition of this land tonight. Tonight is really to understand what are the options in front of us. So, Sarah, can you confirm, can you hear this or can you see this? Am I sharing this in a way that works? Yep. Okay.
And one thing I do want to just let the attendees know that we do have hearings after this as well. So it was not, the agenda was set quite some time ago, so it wasn't put on for the last hearing. So, okay. Thank you, Chase.
And to Sarah's point, I mean, sometimes our agendas are a bit fiction. We've set aside 15 minutes for this. We're willing to go much longer than that, but we'd really like to keep it to half hour to 45 minutes if at all possible. So here's what I want to do. I want to lay the groundwork for what we're dealing with right now. I'll show a map in a moment, but we're talking about parcel U1214-0, and U1214-0 has a whole bunch of instances of what we would consider, under the context of the Wetlands Protection Act, unpermitted activities on town-controlled land. And the town-controlled land that we're talking about tonight is the town-controlled land that is controlled by the Conservation Commission. I'm going to show you a picture in a minute that says, yeah, there's some other, conservation or not conservation, some other select board controlled parcels that may be relevant here. Our discussion will inform, I think, the select board and how they think about those, but they're, for legal reasons, they're actually separate things. And really why this is being discussed is because we've received a number of complaints about unpermitted activities on this town-owned land. And frankly, there's credence to those concerns, that there's a parcel of town-owned land, there's a multitude of unpermitted activities that are going on here, as well as activities that are going on that are, frankly, I think, private property uses of town-owned land. And really, at the end of the day here, the goal is to figure out a plan for the equitable utilization of this land. What are our options? What are we going to do? What is reasonable to do? And frankly, what's consistent with the Conservation Commission and the town's interests here? We understand that this particular parcel, this U12-14-0, historically has been used by a number of residents who live on the other side of Lakeshore Drive in a pseudo-public or in a pseudo-private capacity. What is vitally important to understand here, though, is that this has been town land for a very long time, and those private activities have occurred on what is public land, and we need to figure out the right disposition of that land. What I want to do here, Lauren has done an amazing job of cataloging a bunch of these issues. I'm going to run through a couple of these issues that we've seen. So on the town website, under this issue, are a cataloging of unpermitted activities on this parcel, as well as other town-controlled parcels along Long Lake and within Long Lake. We are formally tonight talking about this parcel right here that runs along Long Lake Drive, but the work that Lauren has done as the assistant conservation agent has cataloged all of these issues, and that includes docks, boats and watercraft, and then what we call other unpermitted activities here. We're setting aside the Parks and Recreation property. That's That's very much a different piece of consideration. And then you can see here the select board controls this parcel along Queen, was it Queen Road, Queen Lane, Queen. Anyway, over here, most of what we're talking about, all of what we're talking about tonight is really this parcel. Sorry, this parcel right here along Lakeshore Drive. That said, what we're talking about will very much inform what the select board may think about in terms of this work over here. But strictly speaking, and there's a very important caveat sort of, buried in text that you can't read down on the right side about how that's actually under the care, custody, and control of the select board. So what we're really dealing with here are a multitude of issues related to watercrafts that are stored on town property, parking areas on town property, and docks on town property. And there are a couple of examples here. So here, this is sort of in the little corner along Long Lake Drive. We have boats, we have a parking area. We also have a piece of property that no longer has this private property sign, but strictly speaking, this is not private property. I appreciate that someone thought it was private property. They put this private property sign on there. It is not private property. This is on town-owned land. It is not private property. And what we need to figure out how to manage is this dock that is part of public property. There are some other additional examples here, 10, 11, and 12, and this all goes back to the work that Lauren put together. We have a parking area that's identified as 11. This is very much within the buffer zone. We have an extensive dock, 10, 11, and 12 here. This dock, the vegetation management that goes along with that, the mowing, right, is as part of our normal conservation activities. We're often tightly managing vegetation management. We are tightly managing wetland resources. We're managing waterfront resources. So all of these things right now are occurring without permitted approval to implement them. And then here's just one more example. This is sort of a little further along Long Lake Drive. Again, stone walkways, docks, and watercrafts. So this is not a comprehensive list of all the issues, but what we see here is throughout Long Lake Drive a number of these issues that show up over and over. And our goal tonight is to try and figure out what are the range of options that we might have available to us, and frankly, what is the Conservation Commission willing to entertain in terms of resolving some of these issues. I will point you to this the work that Lauren and Tim have put together. All of this, including the public comments on this, are up on the town's website under the Lakeshore Drive Conservation Parcel U12 discussion. So I've shown examples. I haven't shown everything, but I want to point you to that. At the end of the day, what we've got to figure out is what is the Conservation Commission, what are the options that we're willing to contemplate with respect to the management of this particular property. So the range of those options, let's say setting aside legal and regulatory options, right? Just strictly speaking, in terms of what could we do with this land, there are pros and cons to all of these. We could do everything from nothing, right? We could just leave it as is, I think, theoretically, although with huge problems in terms of legal and liability and regulatory. I suppose theoretically do nothing is on the table. To all the way in the other extreme, remove everything, require people who own or people who have installed those docks and install or place those boats there, to require them to remove everything, take everything off the shoreline and return it to natural conditions. So those are sort of our two bookends. And then we probably have a multitude of options in between. Maintain some of the docks, identify them as town property. What we're here tonight to do is explore where the community is and where the Conservation Commission is within this range of options. But every one of these has challenges. If we do nothing, we have massive legal, liability, regulatory challenges. If we remove everything, we're certainly going to challenge some of the neighbors that we all live with who have treated this essentially as private property for a long time. And I think we should recognize here that they've treated it with sort of as semi-private property, with the understanding that people are watching this, and it's known what they're doing. At the end of the day, though, the criticisms that we've got and the concerns that we've got that this isn't really private property, these are all publicly owned lands, requires us to think about what the right management of this is. So the way we're going to handle this tonight is we've got Ivrea Freed from Town Council's office at Harrington and Heap. We've put some questions in front of Ivrea to answer, and my understanding is she's going to spend a few minutes answering the questions in front of us. We understand that during the public comment period, and frankly, during the Conservation Commission discussion period, additional questions might come up. The plan here tonight is to take those in. We don't anticipate responding to those right away. We want to understand what the questions are. A lot of there are thorny regulatory and legal questions to come together. Ivrea is prepared to answer some of these questions. And then as public and commission comments come up, I think Ivrea is going to take down sort of what she sees as issues that we might need to respond to, and we'll be prepared to respond to those in the future. So with that, Ivrea, if you're good with this, I'm going to turn it over to you to start to talk through some of the legal issues that we have with the range of options associated with this property.
Great. Thank you, Sarah and Chase. I think that was a good summary. And yes, if questions do come up, we will note them and make sure that we are considering them and responding appropriately. So as Chase said, there's kind of a set of questions here. I will briefly address all of them. I am going to take them out of order, though, because I think it's important to start with what restrictions are currently in place on this property so that people understand how we can use this property as a municipality. And it's important to recognize that this property was acquired through a tax taking for conservation purposes. That was what the taking document stated, and was in the document sent to the Conservation Commission for management. So what that means legally is that this is what is called Article 97 land. And we cannot change the use of Article 97 land or dispose of Article 97 land absent legislative authorization. So that would require from town meeting approval to send a home rule petition to the legislature and the legislature to vote. Generally, you also have to mitigate when you are changing the use of Article 97 land or disposing of Article 97 land. There are some exemptions, and it may be possible, and we can talk about that in a little bit, that we would be exempt from that. But in general, the baseline rule when you're dealing with Article 97 land is you need legislative approval and some form of mitigation. So what that means here is, in terms of the status quo, we cannot lease out this land, that's a disposition of real property, to private property owners for them to operate docks absent legislative approval. So is it possible to lease this land to private property owners for them to operate docks? Yes. Is it complex? Also, yes. It would require a surplus designation, town meeting approval, legislative authorization, and potentially some form of mitigation. So I think that is like an important point to kind of start out with, is what restrictions are in place. The next question that's there that I'll address is, do residents have to, who have maintained the docks historically have any rights? And the answer to that question is no. They never owned that land. There's no recorded easements that they have over that property. We can find no record that they have any recorded rights. General Law, Chapter 260, Section 31 deals with adverse possession, and there's an explicit carve out for conservation land. So you cannot adversely possess this property. So we do not believe that these residents have a valid claim here. Now, we recognize that there may be some desire by the commission to maintain some of these structures, and that is possible. You would need to make sure that all of the structures have been properly permitted. I think that's kind of number one concern right here. And in many cases, that's going to require an NOI and a Chapter 91 license. But again, it's a fact-specific analysis, and we would need to look at each case individually. But at least at a minimum, you are probably having to go through the NOI process and the Chapter 91 licensure, which is a Department of Environmental Protection license that is issued, unlike the NOI, which is issued by the commission. The question about who is legally responsible for removing the structure is a bit complex. In general, we are the property owner, so we have an obligation to ensure compliance with these regulatory programs. In some cases, enforcement orders can be brought against individuals who have violated the Wetlands Protection Act but don't own the property. So there may be an opportunity there. But ultimately, if we decide as a municipality, if Littleton decides to remove these structures, there may be some potential for us to recover damages for individuals that have trespassed on our property and damaged the property by the erection of these structures. And that's, again, very fact specific, and we would need to look at that on a case by case basis.
And Ivrea, in that context, that would be at the town's general discretion, whether that's us or the select board, maybe to be determined, but.
Right. So it would likely would be the select board at that juncture. The Conservation Commission could make a recommendation, but the select board have the authority to initiate litigation. In terms of liability, there's numerous statutes that deals with municipal liability. The Mass Torts Claims Act is probably the most commonly known one. So our liability would be capped if we did decide to maintain the docks or other structures, similar to when we operate a beach, on Long Pond as well, the liability that's associated with that. In addition, there's other statutes that limit liability associated with recreational land. So while there is some level of liability, it's not unusual, and municipalities can deal with that generally. It's not a huge issue. Can this town set up a mechanism to lease access to the docks? So we talked about this a little bit, and it's why I wanted to start with it. We cannot lease Article 97 land without going through the town meeting and legislative process. It is considered a disposition. We can license Article 97 land, which is different. A lease involves erection of a structure and some type of non-terminable at-will agreement, whereas a license does not involve any structures being set up and can be a temporary access that can be terminated at will. So, for example, if the Conservation Commission elects to put in a dock and wants to give private access for, Monday at 2 to 7, this one person has access, you could do temporary license agreements like that. So again, we can talk about this down the road, but in general, we cannot lease, but we may be able to license the area. And then, is there a way to partner with a community organization to manage the docks? And the answer to that question is yes. We would need to go through procurement to make sure that we're, going through the 30B process, but we could work with an organization to set up some type of management. So I think, what's really important, taking a step back and looking at this kind of from afar, is the commission first needs to understand what they want to see this property be used for. Do you want to have this space be a space where people can come and have access to the water through a dock? And if so, then we can talk about ownership. Do we own those docks, or do other people own those docks? Are they private or are they public? And so we can start kind of peeling back the layers a little bit. I think there is a lot of opportunity here, but the more privatized, I'll say it is, the more complicated it becomes. We're talking about Article 97 dispositions, we're talking about leases, that becomes more and more difficult to do and manage versus the town kind of owning the dock and doing it themselves. So Chase, unless you have any questions that you think I need to address right now, I think I'll let you continue with your presentation.
Yeah, I think that's been really helpful to sort of set the legal groundwork. I'm sure, Ivrea, that things will come up that we'll ask you to address in the intervening time between this meeting and the next time we take it on.
Absolutely.
So what I'm going to do here next then is, with sort of the preamble from me and the preamble from Ivrea, is that we're going to take public comments. I would really ideally keep these to about 15 minutes. We're willing to expand upon that as long as we're not sort of undermining the rest of the function of this meeting. But I want to lay the the guidelines for this. We're gonna ask people to state your name and address. You're going to get one set of comments within your 3 minutes. You're going to get 3 minutes as a speaker. To the extent that you want to raise comments, you want to ask questions. If you ask questions, we may not respond right away. It may take we may need an opportunity to come up with an answer as we look at the legal and regulatory structure. As Ivrea laid out, this is complex. But I think that shouldn't detract from you asking questions. Just understand we may not answer right away. Please know we're very much committed to having at least one other hearing on this topic. The goal tonight is to understand the range of options. I will also note, and I know we have 4 or 5 comments from the public on this. Comments written are much sort of easier in some ways for us to parse and think about. What I do not intend to do tonight is read all of the public comments that we do have into the record. And if you made public comments, please feel free to reference those, but I've seen they've come in the last day or two. I wouldn't presume everyone in the commission has read all of those. I would presume they will read all of those. We typically ask applicants to issue comments or issue documents a couple days in advance of the meeting. So just because we don't respond to a comment tonight doesn't mean we're not going to read it. Just means we want everybody to sort of come up to speed on this. So with that, those are sort of the ground rules. That's what we're looking for here tonight. And we'll talk about next steps sort of after that, but I do want to set the stage here for sort of, we're going to take public comment. We're going to then discuss as a commission what we think the range of options might be and try and narrow that down. The ultimate goal of this discussion is to come back to another meeting with some specific proposed solutions, right? Option 1 is we do this and this and this. Option 2 is we do this and this. Nothing is going to be fixed about those, but we at least want to have more concrete elements of that discussion. So that's where we're going to try and build to tonight over the next 20 or so, 25 minutes. So with that, what I would ask is that people who want to make a comment, raise their hand, and then we will take them and you'll get 3 minutes to comment if you have comments that you'd like to make. Looks like we've got, I'm going to take Dustin Neild first. Dustin, give me a second to promote you here. Oh, I may not have access. Sarah or Tim, can you promote Dustin?
I gotcha, yep.
So it's allowing to talk, not promoting. So we're just allowing them to speak.
Thank you. Yeah.
Dustin, please feel free to introduce yourself with your name and where you reside. Welcome.
Thanks. You can hear me, correct?
Yes, we can.
Great. Dustin Neild, 17 Lakeshore Drive. I'm responsible for the items marked on the map number 3 and 4 for some context. But the additional context of how those things and most everything on the map kind of came into being, I think is really important because there are no bad actors in the neighborhood, right? My understanding is that there was a long-standing informal agreement from this commission, albeit prior members, and you all have come along since that time. But I moved into the neighborhood in 2003, and there almost every one of the existing docks was there. And the story that had been passed along is that the commission at that time, from I don't know, at least the late 90s, maybe earlier, was that there was an informal agreement that land abutters across the street from the lake, in exchange for caring for the strip of land, were tolerated to have a dock. And so when I moved in, there was a dock there. It was a little bit ramshackle. I've maintained it and kept it up over the years. I've never prevented anyone else from using the dock. I've welcomed neighbors to do the same. And I've kept a boat and the dock there essentially that entire time. Not surreptitious, not in secret. I've talked to members of the commission over the years about it. It was sort of an open, known thing that folks in the neighborhood did that. But it also enabled a lot of really positive benefits. And I want to make sure we're aware that losing those benefits is something that would happen if we took the far right option of moving everything away. So for example, having simple access allows me to maintain the conservation programs that are on the lake, like the wood duck boxes. The wood duck boxes that are on Long Lake that I maintain produce about 75 to 100 wood ducklings every single year, now 12 years in a row. And sure, I could do that if I hauled a kayak down to the beach, but every half an hour I spend walking back and forth with equipment and stuff like that is another half an hour that's not spent doing the project. It also allows people to access the ice and to monitor the ice from different places, because ice thickness is not the same all over the place. And it's not always easily accessible from the shoreline, especially in between Grove and Lake Drive. All the street runoff tends to make meltwater along the shoreline itself, but in the places where there are docks, it allows us safe ice access and to be able to check out those things. I want to make sure we know what could be lost in those cases. Additionally, I think it sounds like the commission is open to considering licensing options. And I know other towns across the state have had very successful licensing programs. In particular, Southwick, Massachusetts has had an LPP, a local permitting process, where they have essentially gotten a kind of a group license from DEP to sort of get blanket permission to do dock permits within Chapter 91 that are strictly locally managed, so that they get one big blanket permit and then locally issue individual residential dock permits similar to what we're talking about. And there's towns
Dustin,
that have done it more.
I don't want to interrupt you too much. Can you wrap it up in about 15 seconds here?
Sure thing. And there's also the more traditional path where the town applies for the permits and does a licensing agreement, and the resident or the dock maintainer is responsible for keeping it safe and, you know, assuming any liability. But I think those are things that can work out, and I'd be happy to be part of a working group with the few dock owners we're talking about in this scenario.
Okay, thank you, Dustin.
If there are any other public comments on this, and I very much appreciate that written comments are very valuable to us. And so if folks are holding their verbal comments in lieu of their written comments, thank you. If there are not any other, we have one other, Molly Flannery. Tim, if you can promote her, we'll sort of keep working through comments. If folks have public hearing comments, please raise your hand so we know how many we have to try and manage here, and then we'll kind of work from there. Molly, you should.
Molly, you should be able to speak, Molly.
Okay.
We did this right. You should be. Yeah, there you go.
It's actually my husband here who raised his hand, so he's on my computer.
Yeah, I'm Tim Ahern. We both live here at 3 Lakeview Drive, and we're not part of this parcel, but we do have a boat and a dock on the lake. And I just want to voice my support for Dustin and many of the other people that have maintained docks on the other side of the lake. I think it's a great asset to the lake. These people are very committed to annual cleanup drives. There's always some little fussing and housekeeping, you know, out there to make sure the worm plastic boxes and the, you know, all the stuff from fishing and a few stray beer bottles, you know, get cleared up, and wood that gets blown around and just causes, you know, very unsightly messes. And they're committed to doing stuff like that, which I think the lake really benefits from. And I think another thing is, with all the usage that they typically do of the lake with their watercraft and whatever, if they were not allowed access, I think their only outlet would be to go to the town boat landing. And so you could consider maybe a significantly increased amount of traffic over there, and can it handle it? Is that an efficient use of access to the lake, in other words? Because there's something in place right now that's handling a lot of the interest in enjoying the lake, and then it'll go into maybe a more controlled, regulated pathway, which would be, I assume, the boat landing, and that's something that one would have to consider about whether that would become a bottleneck.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Next up would be Sarah Corey. Sarah, you should be allowed to speak.
Okay, awesome. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, if you could introduce yourself and state where you reside, that would be great.
Sure. So my name is Sarah Corey. I live with my husband Ethan at 35 Lakeshore Drive. We were also represented in the pictures there. You know, I'm raising my 5-year-old here in this neighborhood. I know that this neighborhood was built to be a sanctuary for people to come out from the city, enjoy the water, to enjoy the beauty that this town has, and to also, you know, to have a little bit of a unique situation in raising a family, right? Not everybody gets to grow up on water. Not everybody gets to fish off of their front yard. We moved in, we had a dock in place. It was quite long, stuck out pretty far, and was mangled by the ice melt one year. So we ended up rebuilding and making it a much shorter one. And we have thoroughly enjoyed it ourselves, but we've also invited so many kids fishing, just to sit out on the dock, people take in the views. And I just find that wanting to reduce the access, reduce the visibility and everything that we're just trying to help maintain, which was maintained here prior to us moving, such as the mowing, the parking area, and all of that. To take that away kind of takes away the history of what this neighborhood was built specifically for. And it's kind of disheartening. So, you know, we would love to keep it how it is. We'd love to continue to share the beauty of this town with everybody who walks by. You know, it's probably one of the most popular walking spots. I think I've heard somebody say that before. You know, a couple things that we're wondering is, you know, what the complaints are. Specifically, it sounds like there's quite a few complaints. You know, would like to know what those are. We'd also kind of like to know, you know, what's the issue with the mowing? Because like Dustin said, it's been the understanding that if we're abutting the lake, that you kind of maintain what you have. And so we've continued that tradition and have had nothing but positive comments from hundreds of people who have walked by. But I certainly would love to continue to have the front yard that we have and share it with so many people who also enjoy it greatly themselves. So,
all right. Thank you very much, Sarah. Next up would be Karen O'Dwyer. I apologize if I did not pronounce that correctly. You should be allowed to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Hi, my name's Kieran O'Dwyer. I live at 33 Lakeshore Drive, right next door to Sarah. I'll be quick. I just wanted to kind of speak up in support of basically what everybody said. My parents have owned 33 Lakeshore Drive, and I've been living there on and off for my entire life. I mean, this is basically, the road used to be a dirt road. I mean, people have maintained that side of the street so I'm 38 years old now, right? So I'm not quite sure where this initiative to kind of change the way things are is coming from. I'd like to hear if you could maybe speak tonight a little bit. I know you can't answer every question, but if you could speak up a little bit about what the specific complaints are and who is complaining and what we can do to address those complaints, right? Because we also don't want anything to change. I mean, like everybody has said, we've maintained that land, we mow it. People use it. I've never heard of anybody who's come in from anywhere else and used the land, like walking their dogs. I see kids fishing out there all the time, people launching their canoes and kayaks from other parts of the neighborhood. I mean, if all these docks have to be removed, that whole side of the lake will have nothing. The only access will be the beach, right? People will have to walk all the way down there. It's an extra quarter of a mile from my house, and it's an extra, if you go all the way down to the Silverbergs at the other end of Lakeshore Drive, that's a half a mile. Everybody who comes down that hill has access to the water from this side of the lake, from Lakeshore Drive. And if we stop taking care of it, kind of that all goes away. I mean, people are out there every morning. I see people walking their dog. It's a great view. And if that becomes overgrown, I think there were kids a couple years ago out there taking their prom pictures. And like I said, I've never heard of one person coming out and saying, hey, you can't be here, get off our land. Nobody's treating it like it's private property. And I know there was a no trespassing sign there, but I have no idea who put that up. And if it's gone now, I've never heard of anybody being chased off. So I would just like to hear a little bit about what the complaints are and what we can do to address them.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think next up we have Jim Jim, we'll take your comments, I presume, as an interested party, not as an associate commissioner. Is that right? Can you clarify? I just want to make sure we're on the right side of lines here.
That's exactly right, Jason. That's the first thing I was going to say. And I spoke with Andrew about this. So yes, the first thing I would like to say is that I am also a homeowner along Lakeshore Drive, 43 Lakeshore Drive, to be specific, and also have a dock in front of that property that was also in those photographs. And yes, you you said, based on that, I'm recusing myself from participating in this discussion as an associate or an alternate member of the commission and speaking as a town resident taxpayer. And I submitted a written comment at the suggestion of others I spoke with, which I hope the commissioners have a chance to read. I won't try to read that again tonight. I hope people will take a chance to look at it. But just add a few comments based on what I heard tonight. I'd like to echo the comments of my friends and neighbors. I think it's always been a welcoming community. People have talked about some of the uses of different docks. Our dock seems to lend itself, the dock in front of our home, seems to lend itself particularly to fishing. And there have been often children, kids, boys, parents with kids fishing there. And it's been a great thing to see. And we've always welcomed them and, congratulated them. I will mention, and again, I don't over dramatize this. I mentioned this at the select board meeting. My wife and I, in our over 15 years of kind of maintaining that property, have helped rescue 2 capsized boats, one with 2 teenage girls and one with a father with 2 small children that capsized in the lake, up lake, you could say, away from the dock, from our dock. We rescued those boats by bringing them back to our dock and getting them righted and back on their way to the beach. I wouldn't say they wouldn't have survived without it, but I think it was, it was a contribution that was, a very valuable aspect to what these docks can provide. The last thing I'd say is I was pleased to hear from town council the reference to the ability to cap and manage liability. To me, as Chase went through the pros and cons, permitting the docks, the primary issue that I've heard associated with that is that there is some liability. I think fees associated with permitting can help pay for liability insurance. And I hope we can find a way to use the permitting fees to provide insurance for the very limited, risk of liability that could be entailed and is hopefully capped in a manageable way. So I'll stop there. And again, the last thing I'd say is I appreciate the commission having this very open discussion and soliciting input in this way. And I hope that will lead us to a constructive solution. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Looks like we've gone through the public comments. I'm sorry. We've got Rob Rounce. Rob, should be able to promote you here.
You're good. Go ahead, Rob. If you can introduce yourself, that would be great.
Rob Rounce, 25 Juniper Road. Submit a letter. Hope you'll consider it. Among the things that I want to emphasize based on what I'm hearing tonight is, one, I hope that the next public hearing will be in public and not via Zoom. I have no idea who the other 31 people are. I think that the community can benefit from understanding who all is concerned about this matter. I heard earlier with regard to the land was taken. That's different than how I've heard it presented before select board, in which I wrote in the letter that my understanding is the land was donated. I'm not saying I'm correct. I would ask that you address that at some point in time. I appreciate all the efforts made by so many people to do the docks. I appreciate Dustin and the work that he does to provide for wildlife, to provide for the safety of us who use it during the winter. I appreciate, I'll just pick on Sarah and Ethan for the views that they provide. I want to point out, because I've got very much concerns that the property that isn't being maintained by local residents is overgrown and it denies views, and trees are dying because they're strangled by invasives. I'd request, because of what was stated by legal tonight, give us a perspective of that licensing option so that we can understand it. And lastly, I would ask that as you're stating you present plans in the future, I'd ask that you give us more than, I'm not saying you weren't going to give us more than 2 days, but I would ask for a little bit bigger period of time so that we can understand what your proposed alternatives might be, following your discussion, and that we may consider discussing amongst ourselves a common unified response, et cetera. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chase, I think, Tess, okay. Tess, go ahead.
And I should probably beg your apology by including the Long Lake Neighborhood Association before you start your comments. It was on my to-do list to check in with you, and I didn't get to that before today. So please
yes.
forgive me for that.
No, thank you so much. Thank you for taking my comments. And I did also submit a written comment to you, and I hope you get to read that and the public gets to read that. I also appreciate what the dock owners have done that are around the lake. I, of course, am a beneficiary of Dustin's ice reports, and I do appreciate the views around the lake. I do want to give voice to some of the folks that maybe are concerned about not about alienating neighbors. This is definitely a very strong and welcoming neighborhood. I have heard very, very different comments from people. Actually, I'm sorry. I live on One Birch Road. My name is Tess Deegan. But yes, here we go. My concern in particular with that parcel of land is that while yes, the docks are helpful and there is a need for access from this part of the neighborhood, it is public land. And I feel strongly that there should be a unifying use for that land and a maintenance plan for that land, because I do not believe that having a lawn right in front of the lake is necessarily helpful for birds, fish, and wildlife, and the lake itself, because the runoff has easier access to go into the lake. And there's other concerns, including, the invasive species that have not necessarily been addressed. Some have not. In general, when we go off of Lakeshore Drive and you speak to the neighbors that are higher up, they feel this is possibly unfair, right? They do not use the access. They don't necessarily have the boats in the water. They do go around, and anybody new cannot get a permit, new and living on Lakeshore Drive cannot get a permit. They have to be denied. And then lastly, my next door neighbor on Lakeshore Drive, the owner of the house, it's actually a rented property, but the owner of the building called me quite enraged recently, wanting to rent the apartment, but having a dock in front of her that it doesn't belong to her or a very adjacent neighbor. So there's some difficulty here in trying to make this fair for everyone, govern the land well, right? Have a plan to see what, where do we need long vistas and where can we make sure that the lake is the priority here. And I feel that the Conservation Commission is the best commission in the town to take this on and take full responsibility. And if you do choose to permit or license or some other word, some docks, I'm sure the neighborhood will use them and appreciate them. It might be a nice way to make, to give some kind of, something back to the neighborhood that we can use. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Chase, what I'd like to do, what we started to do in the beginning, is that I'd like to open it up for any comments or questions that the commission has, especially where we do have other members here as well. So,
Sarah, if it's okay, I would like to address one comment that came up before we get into that, because I think it's important. I appreciate that the dock owners that are here tonight have talked about how well maintained and accessible the docks that I keep saying their docks, and excuse me for that language, but how accessible their docks are. The fact of the matter is we've gotten complaints, and I think our own eyes show us they're not all well maintained. A number of them are literally falling apart. And on top of that, we've gotten, I think, verifiable complaints that kids have been shoon off docks. Just to sort of truth check things, checked in with my own kids, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we know we're not allowed to use those. Kids get shooed away from them." So there's at least in some instances some issues with accessibility, and that's really the genesis of us trying to sort out the equitable management of sort of this public land. So with that, Sarah, I'll defer to you in sort of managing the rest of the commission discussion on it. But I think it's important to know that we're not dealing with a rosy and idyllic scenario here in all circumstances.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. Commissioners, anyone else care to share their thoughts? I know it's a lot to take in. I know that I have not had a chance to read all the comments on that have been submitted, especially if they were done today. But I feel as though the town website is a great place to share this information as well. And as Chase had mentioned also in one of the previous slides, that it's easy to submit to Tim, who's here with us as our agent, and he can get those posted as well. So I would defer to our commissioners. It is 8:50, so we have been with this for 50 minutes, and we do recognize we do have a few more after this as well. So commissioners, any kind of questions or comments? You are all muted as well. Just
let me preface this. What we want to do is we want to figure out for the next meeting, what are the range of options that we want to specifically debate? And I think my challenge to you all is what's on your mind within that continuum of options? What's a non-starter? What makes sense to you all?
If you're asking us, a non-starter for me would be complete and free reign. That's there's no question. I don't know yet how I feel about how far toward the other end we should go. You know, we have to balance the public use and conservation purposes and what have you. So I'm still absorbing, still processing.
Great, thank you. Anyone else want to speak?
I would
sure.
certainly echo. Oh, sorry,
go
Michael,
ahead, Andrew.
did you want to go? Oh, thank you.
No, go ahead. I'll go after you.
Oh, thank you. I just want to thank everybody that came tonight and offered comments and questions. I think I would agree with Ed. There's a lot to take in tonight and to really consider. I think the overarching thing for me is there's a need for access. How do we deliver that? Do we do nothing, or do we have an elaborate permitting, or do we come up with some kind of town? I wouldn't be opposed to the town in this situation, a hypothetical, maybe putting in 3 docks with CPA monies that are, built by the town. We know how solid they are, and, they'll provide access. Non-starters for me, I think about the parking areas. It's a little dicey. I think Tess summed it up well too, that recently even our office, the town clerk's office, has received a number of complaints about new homeowners coming in and essentially saying, hey, why is my neighbor allowed to do this, but I can't do it? And it's hard to explain that to somebody that wants to do it. So it kind of puts the town in an awkward position. But I think there's got to be a way to get that access to everybody. I think we all want that access, so that Dustin can do what he does for the townspeople and, so many other things. But how do we deliver that? That's really where we've got to focus.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
Yeah, and just to leverage what Andrew was saying, will this end up being a much bigger thing than, the Long Lake conservation area? If we open up licensing, for example, here, do we have to be able to consider it for other town-owned lands and make equitable access there for, really whatever the purposes are? It seems like a much bigger issue than just this parcel.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Hey, Sarah, Carl.
Yep, go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, and I agree with Andrew. Our conservation lands are set up for the public, and we try to make our public lands as accessible as possible, whether it's putting in a boardwalk to cross wetlands or an observation tower or something like that. This is a much different situation And I was thinking about Andrew's comments about placing in several docks, but then it gets in the situation, are the docks going to have to come out every winter, like the one at the town beach? The reason a lot of these other docks get mangled is because they're left in year round. So it's just something else for us to think about as we kind of debate this question. I think that's as far as I'd like to go tonight, Sarah.
Okay, great. Well, we appreciate your thoughts. I would like to take a pause and let Ivrea speak as well.
Thank you. I found the comments very helpful. The context was incredibly interesting for me to hear. So I really appreciate being present tonight. I just wanted to add a couple things. I'm happy based on kind of the questions around what does a permitting program look like. I'm happy to kind of walk the commission through what that option would look like for your consideration at your next meeting. I can put that in writing. I can also kind of spell out a little bit about what the risks are associated with these long-term dock owners, and kind of put all of that in paper for you if that's something the commission would want.
We may take you up on that, Ivrea, holding you sort of to the same standard that we're asking.
Yeah.
Written comments are a lot easier for us to try and parse.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, with that said, because we do have two other hearings that were supposed to start at 8:15, I would like to close this discussion and welcome further discussion. We will...
Before you close it, Sarah,
Yep.
we should set a date certain for
That's
when
what I was
we're...
just going to say.
Okay.
So we have November 4th and then followed by the November 18th. So historically, we meet on Tuesdays. We've got town meeting coming up. So in order to allow people to access comments and share their comments, would we like to put this to the 4th or put this to the 18th?
Can I advocate for the 18th, Sarah? In the context of Rob Rounce's comments, I think it's a fair criticism. Like, having something more than a few days in advance could be helpful.
Yep. Okay.
And we'll aspire to give the public a week to sort of wrestle with things, but we probably can't get it all done in a week. So,
is there another commissioner that supports that to the 18th?
Everything else going on with the town meeting and you know, all the big things coming up in the next couple of weeks, I'm inclined to go later.
Okay.
Yes. So selfishly, I won't be out there before, so I would go along with Chase.
Okay, great. So the time will be posted. If we're going to go to the 18th, you won't have the assigned time until we get closer to that meeting, but it will be that night of the 18th. And I welcome everyone joining us this evening and look forward to seeing you at future meetings as well. Okay, so what I'd like to do now for it's 8:57, I'd like to go ahead and open the 8:15 public hearing. Request for determination of applicability, 34 Fletcher Lane, installation of a septic system. Who would like to speak to that? Tim, are you familiar with who may be in attendance?
Yep, I'm promoting Matt over right now.
Matt, thank you for your patience. Welcome. If you could introduce yourself to get started, that would be great.
Hi, Matt Morrow, representing Arison Family Trust. I'm here with a determination of applicability this evening for a septic replacement. If I'm able to share my screen. Let's see what we got. Can you guys all see that?
Yep, we can. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, so what we have here, it's actually quite simple. The current configuration is we have a septic system that's here along with an old tank that is here. Everything here is going to be left and abandoned in place. That's going to be disconnected. We're going to put in a new tank here with a main going out to a leach field here. It is out of the buffer zone. And here is your 50-foot zone. We have erosion protection here that is proposed that would not allow work to traverse within 50 feet of the wetland. That's basically it. So the area that is actually within the buffer zone is the force main going out, the tank, and the main going to, well, half of the main going to the septic system. Fairly simple.
Commissioners, questions?
Matt, what's the decommissioning of the existing system going to look like?
They're gonna cut and plug it. It's just gonna be left in place.
Okay, we're not talking about any excavation to support the decommissioning.
Nope.
And apologies if you wrote that down somewhere and I just didn't.
No, it's okay. I'll make sure I point it out more prominently in a future NOI or RDA.
On your new system, how are you getting that installed? You're gonna have to have some heavy equipment back there, I'm assuming?
Well, heavy equipment will be, yeah. I mean, there is going to have to be a mini excavator that comes out here. You're going to have like a trench with a 5-foot over dig around here coming in. This area right here is out of the buffer zone. I do stand corrected on one thing. There's some minor, there's 2 contours that are grading within the buffer zone between the 100 and the 50 foot. So the work won't come any closer than 75 feet here. There's no trees to be removed. All work is being done with an existing one.
How are you accessing the equipment?
So the equipment would be done. Here's Fletcher Lane. Here's the driveway. It would be coming around this way. Coming around this way.
And the part of this that is in the buffer, excuse me, is already grass or not?
That's correct. This area right here, you see these triangles? So what Evan Carloni always does is any trees that are greater than 6 inches in diameter, he will locate and put on the plans. If there's any other smaller trees that are going to be in the area of work, he would show it more as a cloud cover here than anything else. Like this area right here, this is actually going under a canopy. That's not going to be disturbed. So it will go through the lawn underneath. It's just showing you that there is a canopy over it.
If there's a canopy, that means there's trees there. How are they not going to be disturbed if you're digging a trench and a big hole?
Well, if he didn't locate them, that means they're small saplings, so he's just going through them. There's nothing being removed here. If it was being removed, he would have noted it.
Okay.
When were the flags done?
34 Fletcher Lane. I did them in the spring.
Okay. Have they been verified?
I don't know if anyone's gone out and looked at them.
I'm not conceptually opposed to a negative determination here, but I would like to have eyes on this. Like the question of what trees might actually need to be removed regardless of diameter, confirmation of the wetlands protection, wetlands lines, etc. I'm not comfortable making a determination yet, but if Tim and Lauren go look at it and say, we agree with this, I might have a different opinion, but I couldn't reach a negative determination right now.
I agree. I went out there today and couldn't see, obviously I wasn't going on the property, but I couldn't see what was being done.
Yeah, the aerial shows a lot of that in that area, but there's definitely a good sized tree, so I can see it being an issue.
Any other commissioners have questions for Matt?
Matt, did you say that the current system's in failure?
That's correct.
So they're pumping it now?
I cannot answer that question.
I ask because if they're pumping it, it means they have a big truck somewhere. They're running a long hose somewhere. So they're already disturbing the space theoretically?
Nobody's made me privy to that information.
Okay.
My request here would be a site inspection by the agent to confirm conditions, and then we discuss it in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that. The only thing I ask is that if anybody wants to go for an inspection, that I accompany them so I can answer questions on the spot. If they have a problem with the delineation, I can dig a hole, save a little time.
Yeah. So Tim, if you and Lauren want to communicate with Matt, and then also let us know when you're going to go out to see if there's any commissioners that can go out with you as well, that would be great. So with your permission, Matt, we'd like to go ahead and continue this to November 4th.
Yep, I'm writing that down now. Okay. All right, please. I am officially requesting a continuance of this determination until the November 4th meeting.
Thank you.
Bless your heart for saying that out loud. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
You always want to make sure that it's official and that nobody ever has a room for doubt. So I always make sure to make it official.
I appreciate it. Okay, great. Thank you. Have a nice evening. Okay, it's now 9:05. We'd like to open up the 8:30 continued public hearing, notice of intent 97 and 99 Mill Road, Mass DEP 204-1022, construction of an electrical equipment area. Hold on one second. Okay, so David, I see you've got some people joining you. So yep, feel free to go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so just to reintroduce myself, so Dave Ketchen, the Assistant General Manager at the Littleton Electric Land and Water Departments. I've got Steve Byrne with me from Citizens and Dan Sievers with him as well to present our updated proposal. So Steve, I'll kick it over to you.
Thanks, Dave. Can you guys all hear me?
Yep.
All right. Hopefully you guys have seen our updated proposal. I believe that Dan provided or I sent over to Tim a stamped drawing of our proposal. If Dan is on, he can share his screen and we can walk through that specifically, but at a really high level, what we have done, last time we spoke to you guys, we had shown you that we had originally we were proposing a tight tank kind of scenario. And then we received from the deputy fire chief his request, which included a vacuum truck, and he wanted everything to be kind of more centralized if they decided to use water to spray in the event of an emergency. So we had switched gears and we had presented a preliminary proposal. This is more of a final proposal that is more definitive, whereas we are going to have a liner around the entire project. All of that will be kind of directed towards some piping at I'm going to call it the left side of the project, and that piping will then go down to larger piping, which is at the bottom. We'll go to a valve where that's where the vacuum truck would be able to open and close a valve there. They close the valve, and then the vacuum truck would essentially take all of the water that could be sprayed there. During normal conditions, everything would be open and everything would flow naturally from the site down through the piping, and then the valve would be left open for normal conditions. Dan, Dave, am I missing anything there? It's really kind of a high level.
See my screen right now?
Yep, we can see it, Dan.
Okay. Yeah, Steve nailed it pretty well. So the whole idea around what we're proposing now is to basically envelope the entire battery area so that any rainfall or precipitation from either fire management event or just normal rain would be collected through a impervious liner, which is basically going to create a big bathtub, if you will. So if you're looking at the cross section that we put together that shows what it'll look like if you're looking at it from basically a slice of this area, every concrete pad is going to be enveloped so that you're not doing a liner underneath the concrete pads themselves. They'll go around them. So if you're looking at this from perspective of the side, water, if sprayed or just naturally occurring, will fall. Just for instance, like the highest point of the system will come through and down and eventually make it to the low point, which is guided with a perf pipe along the lowest edge of the system that will collect the water during normal events and in the potential emergency situation. And during the normal situations, water will just flow to a riprap outfall. And in the event of an emergency response, there's going to be a close-off valve located far away so that it can be closed off. The emergency vehicles can set up far away to be safe, and they can at that point choose to, if they want to, directly have water sprayed in the vicinity to prevent the spread, along with having the emergency unit on site to vacuum truck remove basically from a distance at the port upstream of the close off. So the whole idea is so that if they wanted to, they could spray water in the vicinity. However, they're not planning to, but it's good to have that option. I think that's about it. And I think we open up for questions and comments.
Yeah, one other thing to mention, we have spoken to local vendors for a vacuum truck. So the deputy fire chief wanted us to have he referred to it as a contractor, have someone on call. And we have started those discussions. We haven't selected a vendor, but there are vendors. There's actually one that's within like 10 minutes that Littleton Electric Light and Water Department uses as well. So we have started those discussions as well. So yeah, I think we've addressed most of the questions that has come out. I'm interested to hear what the commissioners' questions or comments are.
Okay, thank you for that. Commissioners, questions, comments?
Can you go back to the cross sections? I haven't seen the drawing that came through earlier today. I guess the most recent revised. We didn't get to see this sheet, so I'm just trying to wrap my head around what this.
Yeah, so Kyle, I can try to explain this because I am not an engineer, and this took me a little while. So the
I am, and I'm still struggling with it.
The darkest lines are intended to be the liner. So the liner would go. That's like the fence side would then go to the first section of the concrete pads. So the concrete pads are not going to be, obviously going down 10 feet or anything. So we've talked about two ways to do this, and this is the way we're looking at right now. So essentially we're referring to it as like, a couple of bathtubs that are there. So there's really going to be, little to no chance of water getting below the concrete and within the liner. So those, like I said, the dark dotted lines that are highlighted here are the liner. So we would essentially dig out the entire site. The concrete pads would go in, then we'd dig out the site around it, we'd put the liners in, and then we would refill with rock and other sand and soil, and then have it be what we're representing there. Does that make better sense?
Yeah, so I understand that part. I'm trying to, in my mind, see how the PVC piping is running and collecting, right? Because you're showing collection pipe all the way around the perimeter.
The collection pipe is just going to be at the bottom on that one side. So everything is going to be tilted, or the elevation is going to go down. Everything's going to be funneling towards that pipe. Go ahead.
So if you have three bathtubs, how is the top bathtub connected to the middle bathtub connected to the bottom bathtub?
They're not separated. So you're looking at the cross section through here. So what you don't see is the open areas. If we were to give another cross section, say here, basically these whole areas, you wouldn't see them. This is more or less to show you how those areas are going to be enveloped. So if we showed you the cross section, like I was saying, you wouldn't see this. It would just continue like that green line there. So it would basically just be showing you, those areas without the concrete pads, if that makes any sense there.
So it's one bathtub, not three bathtubs?
Exactly.
That other picture, the front of it, does that equate to the green line here?
The green line here is the pipe over here.
It's the opposite way, Ed. This
Okay.
is going from top to bottom. The other one's going side to side. This is a
Yeah.
top to bottom look.
Okay.
Is that making sense to you, Chase?
I think so.
Is it just late for me?
Yeah.
It's late for me too.
Well, and here's a challenge that we do like to have all documents submitted Thursday before the meeting, so that way we can kind of digest these.
This was
Is it?
submitted on time.
Yeah, this was submitted like 2 weeks ago.
But wasn't there an update that was just submitted today?
One
was
drawing
just,
showing a hydrant change. The hydrant location change. That was the only thing that changed in the drawing today.
Oh, okay, I apologize.
Yeah, Kyle, I wasn't confused about it until you raised the questions, and I see what you're asking. Let me step back and say this. Conceptually, let's set aside the details of the drawing. As you know, I haven't loved any of this. I think this is okay. Like, we should get the technical details right. Like, water's got to flow downhill, right? Like stuff like that. But beyond that, I appreciate the effort to account for these issues. What I don't know, and I'm fully relying on the fire department to sort of bless, is that there's an adequate storage volume here. The other concern I have is, in an emergency situation, is somebody really going to remember to shut off the valve?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too.
There's this part of me that there's this part of me that's would be much more troubled by this if it was not a public utility doing it. If there's anybody that cares more about water quality in this town than we do, it would be Dave, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the water department. So, like, I don't love it. If it was a purely private project, I would be much more skeptical. I also can appreciate that they've done a lot of the things we've asked, and I'm reluctantly willing to agree to go forward with this as long as Dave says, yep, the water department is willing to implement these plans to be protective of the resource that we're both trying to protect. I'm nervous. I don't love it. I think it's way better than it was.
Chase, I appreciate that. We did not come up with this ourselves. This is all based on what the fire department asked us for, and I'm just trying to read really quickly, and I'm probably not going to be able to find it. In his memo, I think he was the one who said that they would, because they needed the vacuum truck, they would be waiting for that before anything happened, and they would shut the valve. But I'll have to find it.
And it's less to do with, in my mind, who's responsible, and much more to do with, if you're dealing with an emergency and crap's on fire, is anybody really going to remember to shut off the valve? And that just makes me fundamentally nervous.
Yeah, and Chase, the other thing that I was thinking about with that is, so the idea is to capture the water that they're spraying in there, so that the compound that's inside the boxes doesn't leak out. Can't that happen before the fire department arrives to shut the valve off? I mean, maybe it sounds silly, but what if it's pouring rain and, there's rainwater draining out of these bathtubs along with the suppressant or whatever it is we're trying to keep out of Beaver Brook?
So I can kind of address some of that, Michael. So if something happens and there's something in the container itself has, I may not get the numbers correct, but there's like 50 liters of suppression in the container, and the container itself has something underneath on the bottom section that can carry like 60 liters. So I don't think anything is going to get out before anything is sprayed or anything like that. I'm not sure that the rain would be able to do anything, because you would have to have some sort of opening for that rain to get into the steel, and they have deflag panels. They have a whole bunch of other things that are safety measures here. So I don't think that, I think from my standpoint, the issue with that suppression, which is very limited and in a small scenario in my eyes, but I'm very aware of what we're trying to do here. So I think that the only way for it to get out of a container is if they're spraying, and that volume pushes it out of the container beyond what, that containment within the container that I referenced earlier. So that's what we're addressing. And any other potential runoff that we would be getting if they decide to spray. And I just want to reiterate that NFPA 855, the new version that just came out, the firefighters are now being taught not to spray this. So they are treating this as more of an electrical fire, which they would not be spraying. So that is everything that's going across the industry at the moment. So I just want to make sure you guys are aware of that. I'm not sure that they would ever spray, or if they sprayed, it would be to cool the remaining area and not to spray like you see Teslas in the middle of the highway or an electric vehicle in the middle of the highway. So I just want to say that. I'm not saying that from my own perspective to sell this to you. I'm just trying to let you know how the industry is evolving in these response efforts for these battery energy storage systems.
All right, thank you. Now that's very clear.
It is troubling that what we see for a project now is night and day different than what it started out at. And how was that not all considered early on? But that's
I'm not sure how to.
No, you're not sure how to answer that. That was just more a statement than anything else, I guess.
Nothing's changed in the actual project and the structure, other than accommodating with the liner and
the drainage and the emergency shut off and
the vac truck.
Yeah, I mean,
those are all things that we would have. Yeah, I don't know of another project like this that has any of this, up front or anything like that. We rely on the fire department or first responders to request or require something. So I think I mentioned in a previous meeting, Wellesley Fire Department wanted to have the dry piping. That was a thing that they were doing, just 2 years ago. The dry piping's not being recommended now, so that dry piping is not there. So we would never just put that dry piping on there until someone requested it, because the way the systems come, they're fully design engineered and are UL listed and are meeting all the safety requirements that that's supposed to. So once we get into these discussions with the individual municipalities and the commissions, that's where some of these things get adjusted and we revise the design of the project. So what we've done here is fairly typical, Ed, in how we've been doing these in other municipalities in Massachusetts, and across the country, actually.
I apologize if we've already discussed this, but can we revisit monitoring reports going forward? If and when this is approved, what's the communication and how does conservation get acknowledged that this is up and running and successful?
I'm not sure. However you want us to let you know. I mean, typically we are, during our building permit, once we get the approvals from the various commissions, during the building permit process, we're going to be required to meet a bunch of the fire department requirements in order to get our permit approved. That is going to be all of that emergency response plan, hazard mitigation that I've mentioned before. And we can notify you once once we're completed, or when Dave and the electric light company provide us a permission to operate. If that works,
I'd like to go one step further here. I'd like to, if we issue an order of conditions, I'd like there to be a condition in perpetuity that commits the water department, or the light department rather, to annually certifying that they've done training with their staff and with the fire department staff in terms of how to respond to a fire here. I just want to make, I'm really worried about implementing this, but if there's any couple of organizations in town who I think can, it's the water department and the fire department, but I want to make sure everybody's read into this on a regular basis.
And Chase, I think that's a great idea to touch upon your point from earlier. Yeah, that definitely crossed my mind, as well as far as training goes for light and water department employees and fire department personnel. And you know, if this was approved, you know, without that order of condition, I think in the next 5 years we would have no issues. But yeah, as personnel changes, figuring out a way to ensure that, you know, annually we meet the conditions of the Conservation Commission. I think that's a great way to do it.
And Dave, I would put the obligation on you as the water department to make sure that the fire department is capable of responding. And that might be a little unfair. They need to be responsible for what they're responsible for, but at the end of the day, this is your infrastructure.
Yeah, almost certifying annual training and reporting that back to the CONSCOM if that works.
That would be a very unique condition for us, but I think it would be a vital one to me getting comfortable with this. And it would be one that I would want to see in perpetuity.
Yeah, and Chase, in most of the emergency response plans, or the two that we've done recently, that annual, we haven't done anything that's how you mentioned, like making sure that everyone is trained, but we've done annual updates and communications, and at this point, Wellesley is coming up on 1 year, so we'll be updating and making sure of everything, that everyone is still, aware of the system, aware of what it can do, and aware of how the emergency response plan is laid out. So, we're trying to do that already. I cannot sit here with a straight face and say we're already doing that, because, like I said, this is all relatively new. But with our emergency response plans, we do have, something in there that says, review annually, and keep communications open, lines of communication open, because I wholeheartedly agree that this could sit there and do nothing for 5 years, and all of a sudden there's an emergency. You have, new firefighters, new first responders that aren't going to know what was described or what was defined at the beginning of the project. So, I think it's a very good idea, actually.
To be clear, that the verb I've chosen is not review, but certify. Like
No, I got you. Yep.
Okay.
No, I got you. Understood.
Commissioners, any other questions?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with everything you guys have been discussing with that. I still don't know about the technical aspect of how this is.
Yeah, there's this part of me, Kyle, like if you've got a question, like we should make sure this is technically right.
The idea is sound, like I understand putting a liner in, but so the way I understand this is going to be constructed, there's six concrete pads, but those are going to be placed at ground surface, the existing ground surface, correct? There's no excavation. You're just going to put in, 6 concrete pads right on the ground.
Yep.
And then you're telling me you're going to excavate around them to put in a liner and then some sort of permeable fill. Am I right? Is that?
Well,
so everywhere there's stone here.
Yeah, I guess I read it differently, Kyle. I assumed they were going to excavate, put the liner in, put the fill in, and then put the pads on top.
The plan doesn't.
I'd totally be okay with that, but that's
that's interesting.
Yeah, so I think, Kyle, you're saying it correctly. I think we would excavate, we would put a liner in, we would then fill it in, we would then put concrete pads in. I think that is how this would work. Dan and I did have a conversation with one EPC contractor who I think was saying something different, which I think is why we were tentatively saying that the concrete pads were going in first. But I think everything would be excavated, the liner would go in, then you would refill, then you would concrete, and then you would, everything would then be one solid bathtub. Because if we put the concrete in, you can't have that bathtub unless the liner's underneath it.
I think this has got to be
Where in the plan
reflected
is that?
really clearly
Right.
in our findings. Like
Yeah,
this is
where
the
in the plan do
sequence
we
that
see
we're
that?
okay with.
That's
that's
my
not
comfort
reflected.
level when I hear I think.
Yeah.
When someone says, I think this is what we're going to do, this is obviously well out of my expertise, but my comfort level just went down.
So you
Up
want to
until
see like
now, all
a
the
construction
discussion-
sequence there?
Yeah, up until now, all the discussion was put the concrete pad, then we're gonna excavate and we're gonna put the liner. It's like, okay, put the liner against what? You know, so I've just gone way backwards on
No,
this.
I would be that was an okay option with me as well if you created 3 trough tubs, which is what I see in this cross section. I'd be okay with that too. You just have to show me how fluid's getting from 1 to 2 to 3.
It's much easier.
It
to
seems
see
a lot
from this.
easier to excavate this whole area, the 3 feet deep, install a liner,
Yeah.
put in some permeable, some sort of fill that is permeable. Having said that, now we're talking a fill that will move liquid at a fairly decent rate, but also be structurally sound to hold concrete pads with this equipment on it. So you're fighting a couple different battles here.
Yeah, because once you excavate, it'll take a lot to get it packed back down to where it can safely hold that concrete pad.
Can you go down 3 feet? Where's groundwater?
Well, this is up on the top of the
That's-
hill, so.
That's what their calculations show.
Yeah, it's 3.2
So,
feet, I think, Dan.
I would say this, at the risk of pushing it out further, we require a written construction sequence so we can confirm the process. But I would much rather see excavation, liner, fill, pads.
Yes, of course. But the first thing that's going to go on the ground is the electric that's going to have to go run underneath the liner itself to the pads that'll be installed once the liner. Some things are going to be happening at the same time, and this isn't exactly a construction document. This is more so conceptual, that it needs to be fine-tuned with the contractor.
But I see exactly what you're pointing to, Kyle. Like I get now your confusion because I maybe interpreted things the way I would have done them, not the 3 different bathtubs.
Right.
The electrical wires you're putting under, are you putting them in conduit or something so that you can replace the wires should something happen without digging everything up?
Yep. Yeah, they're all in conduits. That's how everything goes from the inverter transformers to each of the batteries, along with the auxiliary panel.
Mm-hmm. I need the picture in the document to show what was lastly described of essentially one big bathtub with concrete on top of it and all that. Because I read this apparently the same as others did, concrete pad, and then somehow putting a liner beside the pad.
Yeah, we can get a construction sequence.
That's
what you guys are asking for, right? A written construction process?
Have the
I think so.
what are we going to do?
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm missing. That I'm not seeing the steps, so I can't see it based on the picture that's in front of me. And again, like Chase said, maybe I would have done this a different way if I were doing it. Maybe this is what my concern is. Again, I'm totally comfortable with what you've laid out, and it's same as Chase. I completely appreciate the back and forth you've had with us and the effort you've gone through to kind of satisfy some of our requests. So I'm very comfortable where we're at now. I just want to see something that makes me comfortable that it's going to be built to function the way that you described it. And I don't see that yet. Which I think is a simple fix. And if it's, like Chase said, a simple condition that we receive a set of construction sequence or a construction sequence document, then I'm okay with that.
Okay, any other commissioners have questions, comments, concerns? What's the pleasure of the applicant?
Am I the applicant or is Dave the applicant?
What are you thinking, Steve? Try again next meeting
We meet on November 4th.
for the November 4th meeting.
I had thought you guys were talking about doing an order of conditions, and one of the order of conditions was a written construction process.
I think what you're hearing here is the comfort level of the commissioners are requesting it to be presented informally on the plan.
I think we're kind of split with that, is what they're saying. It's
Okay. I mean, we can come back again on the, what did you say, the 4th?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll request to continue to the 4th.
Okay. Great. So in hopes that we can close, commissioners, do you foresee anything else that you would like to have answered? Okay, so we have a question of an applicant that we will now move on to. Rob Rounds, if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, Rob Rounds, 25 Juniper Road. Appreciate the opportunity. I'll be brief. I just don't know how to handle this matter. Earlier tonight on the Lakeshore parcel, Chase introduced, seemingly when switching Tess Deegan over, he made reference to her with regard to LLNA. She did not correct him. However, in her written remarks that I've read that were submitted to you folks, she identified herself as an individual, and given all the commissioners listening to her and how Chase set it up, I'm concerned how you clarify how she was speaking, I believe, as an individual per her written remarks. I'm not aware that they had any meeting of LNA to discuss this.
Rob, if we can do this, if you're willing to hang on for a few minutes, because it does not pertain to 97 and 99 Mill Road, can we finish this discussion and then we'll bounce right into you, okay?
Sorry, yes.
No worries. Okay, so coming back, so do we have a formal request to advance this to November 4th?
Yes, you do.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate it, and we will see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So what I'd like to do is to quickly address Rob's concern. I think what you've done is you have stated that, and we can make sure that that's noted in the minutes that are transcribed for the next meeting, Rob.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I heard Chase say that, but knowing that she had submitted comments as an abutter, I took everything she was saying as a private citizen, not as part of the Long Lake Association. Personally, Rob, that was me personally. So just to maybe ease your mind a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then Tim, if you have any questions, just circle back with Rob. Okay, great. So what we're going to do now, it is 9:37. We're going to go ahead and open the 8:45 continued public hearing, notice of intent 19 Ipswich Drive, demolition of an existing single-family dwelling and construction of a new single-family dwelling. Let's see. So I know we have Scott. Yeah, Scott, if you want to introduce yourself. Where did you go?
Sorry, it took me a second to find the mute button there. Good evening. Hi, I'm Scott Hayes, Foresight Engineering, representing Proudcastle Properties for the 19 Ipswich Drive notice of intent. Should I just fire away?
Yep, go right ahead.
Okay, so we were here a couple of weeks ago. This is an existing single-family house lot with a dwelling and a driveway and some sheds and lawn area. It's about a half an acre. We've got wetlands on both the east and west sides of the lot, here in blue and here in blue, these ton of Littleton parcels. Existing edge of lawn and dotted green here and dotted green here, and kind of wrapping around the back of the property. On the survey we did, there were a number of large, mostly maple trees throughout the site, which we picked up on the survey. And the proposition is to raise the house in red here and construct this new house, is shown kind of in pink, and utilize the existing septic system, existing driveway area in general, same general vicinity, and conduct all that work within the existing developed yard lawn area. We have proposed to remove one 12-inch maple, which lands in the corner of the dwelling. With the exception of that, we had two others we had previously proposed to remove adjacent to the sheds over here. The commission asked at the last hearing that we preserve those. So we are going to take this small shed down and retain those two 10 and 12-inch maples there. So we've got only one tree coming down for construction out here, and we've proposed erosion control around the limit of work. We've got nothing proposed in the 50-foot buffer zone area. It's this brown here that wraps around like that. It's the limit of work area. We've designated a soil stockpile area. Commission at the last hearing requested we additionally encapsulate the downgrading edge of that, in addition to the already proposed erosion control barrier, which we added that to the plan. What else did we do? A couple of things. So the two maple trees to remain were originally proposed to remove to remain. Added the erosion control barrier around the stockpile area. Designated the driveway area here as this is the existing kind of curb cut driveway area right here, and we just specifically designated with this dark dotted line in front of the driveway area and utility pole. The existing driveway area is the construction staging and material storage area. The commission had asked us to do that, and then also just to confirm the applicability of the stormwater bylaw regulations with respect to stormwater management threshold, which we submitted in a letter noting these revisions on October 14th. But long story short, we're not increasing the impervious cover by over 1,000 square feet, so we're fall under that threshold to not require full stormwater DEP stormwater standards.
Can you just take a second and just go over some of the highlights of that outline, just for others in future knowledge listening to this hearing?
The outline of what specifically?
Yeah, what you have submitted. So your stormwater standards, and then your existing impervious cover versus proposed cover.
Yeah. So
walk us through the calcs, please, Stephen.
Sure. It's in my letter. So I had to read through the regulations myself to kind of fully understand that. But so we start with the area within the buffer zone, within the 100-foot buffer zone. It's on the lot itself. So the lot's 22,000 square feet. We've got a small area here in the middle that's outside. So the total area in the buffer zone is 20,360 square feet. So we calculated 5% of that, and it came out at 1,018 square feet, which exceeds the 1,000 square feet allowance. So it's 5% or 1,000 square feet, whichever is less. So we're capped at 1,000 square feet of additional impervious cover. And then we just ran the numbers on the existing house and shed that are being removed, and that was 1,120 square feet of existing impervious cover, and then the proposed broke out the dwelling, patio, walkway, the driveway, and the one shed here that's proposed to remain, and total that up. That was 2,043 square feet. Simple subtraction from there: 2,043 minus 1,120 973 square feet of additional impervious cover, so we fell beneath the threshold there.
I appreciate you taking the time to do that. With us not really knowing at the time, but it makes it look like you knew what you were doing, that you knew the code and you knew to stay right up against the line. So.
Well, you know, I didn't originally, and it happened to work out.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think that's great that it worked out for
discovery. So the only other thing, we hadn't had a DEP file number, and I emailed DEP this afternoon, not thinking that I would, get any meaningful response, and they did issue us a file number today. And I think the commission, Tim, were you copied on that email?
I was, and they did not have any comments.
Right.
That was going to be my follow-up. Okay.
So can you share that number? So that's
yes, I
captured
can.
on this recording.
It's 204-1028.
There you go.
1018.
1028. 1028.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that was it. I think I've covered what the commission had asked us for previously, and we did slide the DEP file number in under the wire this afternoon. So that said, if I could answer any more questions, I'm happy to.
Okay. Commissioners, anyone have questions? Comments?
No, you may address mine.
Anyone else?
Nope.
What is the pleasure?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we close public hearing and issue an order of conditions for 19 Ipswich Drive, DP number 204-1028.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Kyle.
Maxfield, aye.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Let's see, Carl.
Carl Malberg, aye.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Myself, aye. It is unanimous.
Okay, great. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Scott.
Good night, Scott.
We now just have to jump back to our administrative discussions. Next meeting, November 4th. Tim, you want to talk about Mass Trails, the grant application?
Yep. So on November 3rd, the next grant period opens for Mass Trail grant applications for trail improvements, trail construction, trail maintenance things. If you remember, the trust put one in last year, which we helped them with the application for a mower trailer. Unfortunately, they didn't get selected, but it's come up again this year. And my idea for putting in an application is to put an application to request funds for the creation of it's called a Braille trail. So basically what it is you have to take a pretty flat trail and you install posts every so many feet, and there's a hole that's drilled through each one of those posts, and a chain or something similar that runs along those posts to give the visually impaired something to hold on to while they walk the trail. And along that trail is Braille signs, and sometimes the trails will incorporate like things that can be touched and felt, like certain barks that are very unique, or take it through areas where there's known like high densities of birds, so they can hear the birds chirping and singing. So I want to know you guys' feedback on that. I haven't determined a location or a property yet. This is just in the infancy stages of brainstorming. And I could certainly come back when we have an idea of a property that would be suitable and best fit for this. But just wanted to throw it out there and see what you guys thought about putting an application in for that purpose.
And then if anyone has trail areas in mind, to kind of shoot that over to Tim and Lauren as well going forward. I support the grant application. Yeah. Not sure about other commissioners.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah,
Great
it's a great
idea.
idea.
Fantastic. Okay. Let's see. Tim, do you want to go over Foster Street reconstruction concern?
Sure. So Kyle sent us over a picture this morning, which I could share with you all, of a stockpile over on Foster Street taking place where they're doing the reconstruction. Give me a second here, and I can pull it up. And I went back and I checked the plans, and it's not an approved location for a stock. There's no approved stockpile location where this is occurring. It's right on the corner of Grimes and Foster. So this is what we're looking at right here. And you can see it's pretty close to the wetlands. This is it's within 25 feet of the wetlands, and there's no erosion controls around it. So wanted to discuss with you guys where you wanted to go with this, whether you want to ask them to relocate it if you're fine with it being there, but we just want to ask them to put erosion controls around it, like wattles, whatever you guys thought.
So we're saying we didn't approve the storage in the plan?
We didn't approve a stockpile location right here where the stockpile is.
Yeah.
I don't think we would ever approve.
It looks like it's got some major erosion going on already, Tim. Like you said.
It does.
I'd be concerned how long they're going to leave it there as well.
Yeah.
So that was what I had said to Tim. It's been there for a week, I would say. I drive down there at least once or twice a week.
Yeah.
So what would you like to direct him to do?
They need to move it.
Yeah, I'd rather they get it out and clean it up and get it stable before the next gushing rain comes.
Right.
So I don't know if anybody gone down there lately. That whole area is like all the whole length of Foster Street in front of the train station, heading back towards town from the train station. Is that their stockpile area? The shoulder of the road,
right,
is where they have their common fill, they have their topsoil, and none of that is contained. I don't know if it's probably within 100 feet of that BVW, right, Tim?
It might be outside, Kyle. I took a drive there today with Lauren. In those, they're pretty large stockpiles that they have.
Absolutely.
It was a while that we were driving until we saw silt fence on the other side of the road, so it might be outside of the 100, but I could certainly look into that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this one certainly is. And we had a lot of issues in this corner to begin with, Sarah, if you remember, because there was a wall there that was holding stuff out of the BVW, and this does not sound like a smart idea.
It is a very fragile area, for sure. So the directive, if what I'm hearing you, is for Tim to make hopefully an immediate connection tomorrow with communication and tell them they need to get it out. I would also make sure that you have something in writing as well.
Not only out, Sarah, but the area around it pulled back where it's started to spread towards the wetland.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, cleaned up for it. Yeah.
And if it doesn't look like they can get it done within 24, 48 hours, I would ask them to encompass with probably more wattles, something. They'll probably have to do a sweeping afterwards as well. Okay.
But that would be a short term, but them doing that would not negate them needing to.
No. Right. Meaning that if they can't get it done in the next, 48 hours, that they would only go a little bit longer, but I haven't looked at the weather to see if we're going to get more rain or not.
Tomorrow.
Actually.
Yeah, I'll have tomorrow.
Not as heavy as the other day, though. They said about half as much.
Okay. And then the other was, I know we had distributed the draft order of conditions for 64 Beaverbrook. I just had one thing that I didn't see that I think we had talked about, and I can send this over to Tim, is just adding a language to fund the retention of an environmental monitor to oversee construction in the resource area and the wetlands reconstruction that they're doing as well. I didn't know if anybody else had any other comments on the order of conditions.
Kyle had some that he sent.
Okay.
Some edits.
Great.
I think they were pretty generic edits. I don't think there was anything major that we need. I honestly don't remember. It was earlier this morning. So
okay.
I don't think there's anything too crazy.
But yeah, if you could kind of meld those together and get that out, that would be great, Tim.
Certainly.
All righty. Anything else? It is now 9:54. If we'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All right, final roll call of the night. Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
Carl.
Tom Melberg, aye.
Michael.
Bill Livingston, aye.
Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
And myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay, great.